When people begin learning about nervous system recovery, there is often a moment of relief. Something finally makes sense. They understand why rest hasn't been working. They understand why they feel exhausted even when they stop. And that understanding can feel hopeful at first. But then something confusing happens. They expect that once they understand what's going on, their body should change. They expect energy to return. They expect rest to start feeling better. And when that doesn't happen quickly, discouragement sets in. This is one of the most common points where people get stuck. Because the nervous system does not change through understanding alone. You can intellectually grasp every concept about safety, stress, and recovery, and your body can still respond as if nothing has changed. That does not mean the information was wrong. It means the nervous system learns in a completely different way than the mind. The nervous system does not respond to insight. It responds to two patterns. It learns by watching what happens again and again. It tracks cause and effect. It pays attention to outcomes, not intentions. It notices what follows slowing down, not what you believe about slowing down. This is why you can tell yourself, "I'm safe now," and still feel tense. This is why you can give yourself permission to rest and still feel guilty. This is why you can lie down in a quiet room and feel your body stay braced. The belief may be there. The learning is not. Safety is not something you decide. Safety is something your nervous system concludes after repeated evidence. And that conclusion takes time. Your nervous system has one primary job: keeping you alive. It does not care if you are productive. It does not care if you are meeting expectations. It does not care if you are doing what you should be doing. It cares about survival. If at any point in your life slowing down led to danger, criticism, loss, or emotional pain, your nervous system remembers that. It stores it as information, and it continues to operate as if that risk could happen again. This is not because it is stubborn. It is because it is protective. So when you begin to rest more, to say no, to reduce pressure, the nervous system does not automatically celebrate. It becomes cautious. It starts asking questions. If I let go, will something bad happen? If I stop managing, will things fall apart? If I rest, will I be punished later? Until those questions are answered through experience, the system stays alert. This is why many people feel more anxious when they first try to rest. This is why guilt can increase instead of decrease. This is why doing less can feel harder than doing more. It is not because rest is wrong. It is because rest is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar often feels unsafe to a nervous system shaped by survival. Learning safety means teaching the body, gently and repeatedly, that slowing down does not lead to harm, that nothing terrible happens when you pause, that rest is not followed by crisis. This learning cannot be rushed. You cannot force your nervous system to trust something it has not yet experienced. You cannot discipline it into feeling safe, and you cannot shame it into letting go. In fact, pressure does the opposite. Pressure tells the nervous system that something is still at stake, that there is still risk, that vigilance is required. This is why trying to do recovery right often backfires. When rest becomes another task to optimize, another standard to meet, another thing to succeed at, the nervous system stays activated. It feels watched. It feels evaluated. It feels like failure is possible, and safety disappears. The nervous system learns best through neutrality, through moments that are so uneventful they barely register, moments where nothing goes wrong, moments where no one demands more, moments where the world continues normally even though you are not pushing. These moments do not feel dramatic. They often feel boring. And boredom is uncomfortable for many people, especially those who have lived in survival mode for a long time. But boredom is often the first sign that the nervous system is settling. When there is no emergency to manage, no problem to solve, no threat to anticipate, the mind may feel restless. It may search for stimulation. It may create worry where none exists. This does not mean something is missing. It means the system is adjusting to a lower level of activation. Learning to tolerate this neutral state is part of learning safety. Many people interrupt this phase without realizing it. They add pressure. They decide they should feel better by now. They push themselves to be productive again. They abandon rest because it feels uncomfortable or pointless. But what they are actually doing is reactivating survival mode, right, as the system was beginning to soften. Safety requires consistency, not intensity, not effort, not perfection. Consistency. Small signals of safety, repeated over time, teach the nervous system that vigilance is no longer required, that rest is allowed, that nothing bad happens when you stop. This is the foundation of recovery. And it is why progress can feel slow at first, because learning safety is not about change in a single moment. It is about a shift in expectations built over many ordinary moments. Your nervous system is not waiting for a breakthrough. It is waiting for proof. One of the most discouraging parts of nervous system recovery is how uneven it feels. There are days when you wake up and feel a little lighter, your thoughts are clearer, your body feels more cooperative. You might even feel a small spark of motivation and think, maybe this is finally working. And then the next day, everything drops again. The exhaustion comes back, the heaviness returns, your mind feels foggy, and the hope you felt the day before disappears. This up and down pattern can be incredibly frustrating, especially if you're someone who likes consistency or wants clear signs of progress. It's very easy in these moments to assume that nothing is working, to think that you imagined the improvement, to decide that you're back at square one. But this pattern is not failure. It is learning. The nervous system does not update its expectations all at once. It tests, it experiments, it allows a little bit of relaxation, then checks to see if anything bad happens. If the environment remains stable, it may allow a little more next time. If stress appears again, it tightens back up. This back and forth is how safety is learned. Think of it like a system that has been burned before. It doesn't trust easily. It doesn't commit fully. It releases tension in small increments, then pulls it back if uncertainty appears. Over time, as the system gathers more evidence that it is safe to soften, the periods of relaxation last longer. The returns to tension become less intense, and eventually a new baseline begins to form. But that baseline forms slowly. This is why recovery often feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps back. The direction matters more than the daily experience, and that can be hard to remember when you're in the middle of it. Another layer of complexity comes from context. Safety is not a general state. It is situational. You might feel relatively calm in one environment and completely activated in another. You might feel okay when you're alone, but tense around certain people. You might feel regulated in the morning and overwhelmed by afternoon. None of this means you're inconsistent or doing something wrong. It means your nervous system has learned to associate specific contexts with demand, pressure, or threat. Work environments, family dynamics, social roles, even certain rooms in your home can carry nervous system memory. When you enter those spaces or step into those roles, your body responds automatically. Muscles tighten, breathing changes, attention narrows, energy drains faster. This happens even if intellectually you know you're safe. The nervous system is not responding to the present moment alone. It is responding to patterns it has learned over time. It remembers what usually happens in that context, and it prepares you accordingly. This is why people often feel confused by their own reactions. They might think, why do I feel so anxious here when nothing is wrong? Or, why does my body shut down around these people even though I love them? The answer is not weakness. The answer is learning. The nervous system learned that certain contexts require vigilance, and it continues to apply that learning until it is shown otherwise. This is also why recovery cannot be isolated to one part of your life. You might create safety in one area and still feel depleted in another. That does not cancel out your progress. It simply shows you where more learning is needed. And learning safety in a new context takes repetition. It means having small experiences where you respond differently than you used to, where you don't push as hard, where you don't explain yourself as much, where you allow a pause instead of filling the space, where you let something be imperfect and notice that nothing catastrophic happens. These moments are often subtle. They don't feel like breakthroughs, they don't feel dramatic, but they matter. Another reason people struggle during this phase is that the nervous system often increases discomfort right before it adapts. When a familiar survival strategy is challenged, the system reacts. It may amplify anxiety, it may produce guilt, it may create a sense of urgency or danger. This reaction can feel alarming if you don't know what it is. But this is not a sign that you're making things worse. It is a sign that the system is being asked to update. This is sometimes called an extinction response. When an old pattern is no longer being reinforced, the system briefly intensifies it to see if it still works. If it does not, if safety is maintained consistently, the system eventually lets it go. This is one of the most common places people give up. They mistake this increase in discomfort as proof that rest is wrong. They return to pushing. They abandon the changes that were beginning to work. And the system never gets the chance to fully learn. This is not because they lack discipline. It is because they lack information. When you understand that discomfort can be part of recalibration, you can meet it differently, not by forcing yourself through it, but by staying steady, by continuing to offer small, predictable signals of safety even when the system protests. This is not easy. It requires patience and self-trust. It requires resisting the urge to judge your progress based on how you feel in a single moment. The nervous system does not move in straight lines. It moves in spirals. It revisits old patterns at new levels, and each time it revisits, there is an opportunity for a different outcome. Over time, these different outcomes accumulate. You may start to notice that certain situations don't drain you as completely as they used to, that you recover more quickly after stress, that your reactions feel less extreme, that your body comes back to baseline a little faster. These are signs that safety is being learned. They may not feel like enough at first, but they are the foundation of lasting change. One of the hardest parts of nervous system recovery is that many people give up right before it starts to work, not because they don't care, not because they lack discipline, but because the discomfort that appears during recalibration feels convincing. It feels like a warning. It feels like proof that something is wrong. When the nervous system has relied on survival strategies for a long time, it does not let them go quietly. It resists change. It questions anything unfamiliar. And when those old strategies are no longer being reinforced, the system often reacts by turning the volume up. This can show up as anxiety that feels sharper than usual, as guilt that seems irrational but intense, as an urge to go back to doing, fixing, managing, and pushing. The mind may start producing thoughts like, I'm wasting time, or I should be doing more, or this isn't working. These thoughts are not truth. They are signals. They are signals that the nervous system is testing whether the old strategy is still necessary. It is asking, if I stop doing this, will I still be safe? If you respond by returning to pressure, the system concludes that vigilance is still required. But if you respond by staying steady, by continuing to offer small signals of safety even when discomfort rises, the system slowly updates its expectations. This is why the timing of quitting is so important. Many people quit at the exact moment when learning is about to consolidate. They mistake recalibration for regression. And because the nervous system values consistency, it takes the return to pressure as confirmation that rest was in fact dangerous. Understanding this does not make the discomfort disappear, but it changes how you relate to it. Instead of panicking, you can recognize the pattern. Instead of forcing yourself forward or backward, you can stay where you are. You can allow the nervous system to complete the learning cycle. This is where trust begins to form. And as trust forms, energy begins to return. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Not in the way people expect. Energy returns in subtle, almost forgettable ways at first. You might notice that you can focus for longer stretches without effort. You might notice that conversations feel less draining. You might notice that your body feels less brittle, less on edge. You might notice that stress still happens, but it doesn't knock you out for days afterward. These changes are easy to dismiss, but they are significant. They mean that energy is no longer being spent entirely on vigilance. The nervous system uses an enormous amount of energy to stay on guard. When it no longer needs to do that constantly, that energy becomes available for other functions, for digestion, for immune response, for creative thinking, for emotional regulation, for repair. This is why people sometimes feel clearer before they feel energized, or emotionally steadier before they feel motivated, or physically calmer before they feel strong. The order matters. If you expect physical energy to return first, you may miss the earlier signs of recovery. But if you know what to look for, you can see that change is happening even when you still feel tired. Another important thing to understand is that stress does not disappear when recovery begins. Life continues. Demands still arise. Challenges still appear. The difference is not the absence of stress, but the system's ability to return to regulation afterward. Recovery is not about never being activated. It is about being able to come back. When the nervous system learns safety, it becomes more flexible. It can respond to stress without getting stuck. It can activate when needed and then release. It no longer treats every demand as a threat to survival. This flexibility is what people often mistake for energy, and in many ways it is. Energy feels stable when the system is flexible. Energy feels fragile when the system is rigid. As this flexibility increases, motivation often returns on its own, not as pressure, not as obligation, but as interest, as curiosity, as a quiet desire to engage with life again. This is why chasing motivation rarely works. Motivation follows safety. It does not precede it. When you stop fighting your nervous system and start working with it, the entire experience of effort changes. Doing things no longer costs as much. Rest no longer feels like a threat. Life feels less like a constant negotiation between collapse and push. And this brings us to the most important reassurance of all. If your recovery feels slow, uneven, or confusing, that does not mean you are failing. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it is designed to do. Learn from experience. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not behind. Your body adapted to survive. And now it is learning how to live without constant defense. That learning cannot be rushed, but it can be supported. In the next video, we will talk about specific, practical signals of safety, small cues that help the nervous system soften without turning recovery into another project. These are not techniques to master. They are conditions to notice and protect. For now, what matters is that you stop blaming yourself, that you stop measuring your worth by your output, that you recognize exhaustion not as a flaw, but as a signal. Your nervous system is not working against you. It is trying to keep you alive. And with time, consistency, and safety, it can learn something new.